Welcome home, man.
Welcome to this month's Salute to Service, and today I have with me, who you probably already know, Medina County Commissioner Adam Friedrick, and another title he carries, which I much more prefer, is United States Marine Corps veteran. Welcome, Adam, to the show. Glad to have you.
Ed, great to be here. Thanks a lot.
How you been?
I'm doing well.
Doing well. So we're going to talk a little bit about your service today and what you did in the Marine Corps and how that's kind of shaped and
Sure.
formed you. So you went into the Marine Corps through college, correct?
That's correct. I come from a military family. My father was a Marine Corps, a Vietnam Marine Corps veteran. I've got uncles that have been in the military, I have cousins. It's just we're a military family. So I was fortunate enough in high school to earn an ROTC scholarship, a Marine Corps ROTC scholarship, and I used that to attend Miami University. And I graduated and was commissioned as a second lieutenant on the same day back in 1988.
And then you went in the Marine Corps, and your branch was aviation, I assume, right?
That is correct. As I was going through college, there were different tests and things that I had to take in order to make sure that I was physically qualified and mentally qualified to be a pilot. And I passed all those tests. The way the Marine Corps does things, when you go in through officer candidate school and basic school, you're just going through like everybody else. They want everybody to be a ground officer first and then whatever they do second. So all of those things were the same when I graduated from basic school. Then I entered the flight training pipeline.
So I know the way the Army does is when you come out of ROTC, like your senior year, they kind of go through your records and they branch people accordingly. You get a couple choices, don't you?
Well, when the Marine Corps kind of views the aviators a little different simply because of the physical requirements, the eye requirement.
Right.
Obviously, you had to have good vision, perfect vision at the time. So you're kind of in a little bit of a different pipeline. But as you're going through both basic school and then flight school, what you fly is mostly based on what the needs of the Marine Corps are, but also on how well you do in flight school.
Right. So where'd you go to once you got out of ROTC and graduated from college, where'd you go to flight school at, basic course?
Sure. Started in, all Marine Corps officers go through what's called the basic school, TBS in Quantico, Virginia. And that's a 6-month school where you learn everything about what the Marine Corps does. Artillery, tanks, helicopters, you learn it all. And then from there, the Navy and the Marine Corps aviators start flight school in Pensacola, Florida. And then depending on what you do out of their primary flight school, whether you fly helicopters or jets or cargo planes, then your secondary school is somewhere else. Secondary for helicopters was in Pensacola.
Right.
So,
well, how bad is that?
The flight school?
No, Pensacola.
Pensacola is a nice place to live.
It's a beautiful
Very
place.
nice place
Spent some time at Fort Rucker, and we'd go down to Pensacola on the weekends.
Eglin Air Force Base is down there too. It's a great place to be stationed.
It's a beautiful
really
place.
is.
And you got Panama Beach down there and everything else.
There was never a shortage of beach time, I'll tell you that.
So you obviously you went into helos. What'd you wind up flying?
I flew Hueys.
Hueys? So you're flying a cargo helicopter. Did you fly medevacs or?
Mostly the Huey platform, it was a UH-1, and U stands for utility. So, we're able to put weapons on, rockets and guns, not as much as a Cobra. We're able to fly troops, not as much as a 46 or a 53. There was a large communications package that they could put in the back, and you could have the ground commanders actually up there talking to your troops, so what we called CNC, command and control. So you got to do a little bit of everything, which was nice.
So why'd you choose ROTC? I mean, you said you had a military background, your family and everything else, but what drove you into that? Was it family? Was it your sense of commitment to country? Or?
Well, I guess first and foremost was really the desire to serve my country. I mean, again, coming from a military family, grandfather was a Navy commander, great-grandfather was a Navy captain. First and foremost to serve my country. Second of all, my father was in the Marine Corps. I had a lot of respect for him. He and I still have a great relationship. And the Marine Corps, has a certain mentality and invites a certain type of person. And I was a good fit, so I wanted to do the Marine Corps. And then thirdly, the ROTC was just a great way to pay for college. You know, for the most part,
yeah.
I graduated debt-free.
Pretty much 100%. Yeah.
And owed 4 years to the Marine Corps. I did almost 10, so I enjoyed myself. I had no complaints.
And I think coming out of the Marine Corps as an officer, you know, the training that you get as a leader, I mean, you know, businesses, whatever you want to go into, people look at that because it's state-of-the-art training.
You know, my opinion's biased, and obviously, you know, being in the Army or any of the other military services, the leadership training that you get in the military and how that applies to the business world, it is second to none.
Yeah.
It is second to none.
So you got out of basic course, you get your Hueys, and you're flying, and you're an aviator and stuff like that. And so where'd you get assigned, and what did you do from there?
So I finished flight school in Pensacola. I had a 5-month Huey training squadron in Camp Pendleton, and that was actually just before, or right about the time the first Gulf War was
so
starting.
about 1990.
Exactly, 1990, 1991. And then from there I got stationed in Campbellsview, North Carolina. I was there for 4 years. Did 2 6-month deployments to the Med, did a 2-month deployment down to Haiti, did multiple deployments, training exercises out to 29 Palms.
You're still single at this time, or you're married?
I was married. My
wife
and I got married while I was in flight school, Pensacola.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the beach time, did that have anything to do with it, or?
No, we met in college. She was a year behind me in college, and after she graduated, we got married.
So, you know, I mean, you're flying out to ships, you're on the ships, you were with the Navy all the time, I assume, amphibious ships and stuff like that. So what's it like to be out at sea for 4, 5, 6 months? And you got actually to get off the ship by flying a little bit. Them other guys don't. But.
Well, you know what? The first deployment we did was to the Adriatic off the coast of Bosnia, and for the most part, we were on the ship.
Right.
You know, the Navy. They do a thing where you're allowed to have a beer after every 45 days you're out there, and we did at least, I think we were on there for at least 3 45-day straight periods where, you know.
So you got 3 beers.
You're just on the ship, yeah, and I don't drink beer, so I was real popular with folks asking for my tickets. So we were at sea a lot, and it's nice to fly, and it's nice to get off the ship, and for the most part, you're just doing patterns and landing on the ship. And it does get monotonous. It gets a little bit boring. The Navy personnel, they work as hard as anybody on that ship because they're taking care of the engines and all the communications and the radar and all that stuff. And then the young Marines, especially the ground troops, you know, they just are in weapons cleaning mode and training mode, and it's not really enjoyable being on the ship for that long, but so you make do.
You were in Bosnia, well, you were off the coast in the Adriatic, and I know Bosnia kicked off, I think we went in with 94, 95 with the Peace Corps, and you were there even earlier than that. Yeah. So you were supporting the UN at that time, or?
Yeah, basically our mission there was, if you remember, years later, I think it was probably in 95, there was an Air Force pilot whose name was Scott O'Grady. He got shot down, and then he ended up getting rescued. The group that went in there and rescued, what the Marine Corps called that was TRAP, Tactical Recovery of Air Crew or Aircraft and Personnel.
Okay.
And we were basically what was called standby trap while we were in Bosnia. So they were enforcing a no-fly zone, and if somebody got shot down, we were the ones that were going to go in there with Cobras, Hueys, 53s, 46s, whatever, and rescue the guy. And in essence, exactly what happened with Captain O'Grady.
Right. I think there's a movie out about that.
Absolutely there was, yeah.
So I know when we were talking a little bit, you kind of note that you're a peacetime veteran. And you know, I really, in my eyes, I don't really separate. To me, a combat veteran, although there's different things that went on and stuff like that, you know, there isn't a big separation when we talk about vets, in my eyes.
Yeah.
You know, most people that raise their right hand and swear to defend the Constitution do more than most people.
Yeah.
So peacetime and wartime doesn't matter. And as an aviator, I mean, you're going up, there's danger whether you could be flying at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. There's still some inherent danger there. And flying into, you know, Bosnia where, you know, at that time there was still a lot of shooting going on and everything else, any sense of awareness, any kind of, hey, what am I doing here? What's going on?
You know, it's an interesting point because, you know, I tell folks, it was kind of between Gulf Wars and even the things we did in Bosnia and Somalia. I tell people, if you ever hear me telling, you know, a war story, I'm lying because, you know, I really didn't have a whole lot of experiences there. You know, that said, when I got out of the Marine Corps, I had about 10 friends who had died in crashes, mostly during peacetime crashes. So, you know, and any given day when you go out and do, you know, a night tactical flying, you know, training mission.
Flying with the nods on and MVGs.
Exactly. That was actually one of the worst ones. It was a midair with, you know, a close friend of mine died in that one, and basically everybody on both helicopters died in that crash. That was back in like 95, 96. So it was just as dangerous, and again, most of the friends that I lost during peacetime. There was, I don't want this to sound awful, but it was funny one time. We were in Bosnia, we were in Mogadishu, and we had landed in these kind of sand pits where we took some people in, we would sit and wait for them, and we'd take them out. And all of a sudden, there were shots kind of flying past us.
Coming at you, right.
And they weren't even shooting at us, they were shooting at somebody in front of us, and we were just kind of in the frag pattern.
Right.
So we kind of ducked behind, and nobody got hurt, nothing happened, but something could happen.
Right,
right.
It
was more funny at the time, to be honest with you, but it was.
So you were flying into Mogadishu, and that was
Correct.
to support the effort, the U.S. effort that was going on. Now, were you taking
Correct.
people in and out, or going with gunships, or what were you doing?
We were, for the most part, we were flying transportation of people. It was, everything that happened with Black Hawk Down, I think, was around October of '93, and this was January, February and March of '94. And most of us were on the ship. We had a detachment in Mogadishu.
Right.
The Cobras were doing what they called Eyes Over Mogadishu at the time. They were flying day-night operations all the time, and we were more in a support mode.
It was not a friendly area at that point in
Oh,
time.
no, not at all.
No.
Not at all.
No,
Not
so-
at all. And again, you saw what happened there probably 10 years later. It's still not a friendly
Still not a
area.
friendly area. I think for like the last 20 years, it's been on like one of the worst
Yeah.
areas in the world
There's
to go. It's
warlords
just-
and corruption, and,
Yeah.
and it's just a bad situation.
Yeah, I had some friends from 10th Mountain that were over there in the whole Mogadishu thing, when they went in to try to rescue the Rangers and bring them out.
Yep.
And, it's funny because I remember talking to them in the mid-'90s, late '90s after it happened. And that was really the first big combat inter-urban conflict since the Vietnam
Yeah.
War.
Yeah.
And now you jump ahead 20 years almost, and we got Iraq and Afghanistan, and there's just about everybody has been in combat that's in the service, so it's a lot different. So after those two experiences, anything that stands out in your military career that you remember, good memories, bad memories, just kind of out there that was going on? I know you said you were on a ship and got some medals or something. And
Yeah, I guess if there was an experience that I can probably remember, when we came back from our Somalia deployment, which was also a couple months off the coast of Bosnia. This was in June of '94. There were things going on down in Haiti at the
Right.
time. And so end of June, we come back, everybody goes on vacation. We got a call right around the 4th of July, just a week, 10 days, 2 weeks later, that we were going back on the ship. So we had a big squadron formation, and let's say it was on a Wednesday. The squadron commander was a lieutenant colonel, and he said, "We're getting back on the ship on Friday."
and going.
And I was the embarkation officer, which basically is in charge of getting all the gear and all the people and all the helicopters and everything organized and set up so that we could get back on the ship in 2 days. And we did. And the 4 ships that we
what
went away
happens,
with,
right? Yeah.
the 4 ships
Yeah.
went down to Haiti for a couple months. But because it was such a rapid deployment, each of the units picked a representative to receive a Navy Achievement Medal that was presented directly by the Commandant of the Marine Corps, General Mundy. So he flew down, and we were on ships off the coast of Haiti. And there were, I think, 3 of us there that received a Navy Achievement Medal directly from the Commandant of the Marine
Wow,
Corps.
that's
And that
pretty
was
cool.
far and away the biggest honor that I had during my time in the service.
So I got to ask you, because I know the Huey's got skids. So did you do running landings?
Oh, yeah.
OH-58s, and I remember that's all I did for 3 weeks down there when I was going through aerial observer
Is that
school.
right?
Yeah. And I remember thinking to myself, this has got to be the craziest thing I've ever done in my life, because you're literally trying to land a thing like an airplane.
I may not
almost.
have told you this. When we started in Mogadishu, the Army was occupying the base there
Right, the
at the
airbase,
airport.
yeah.
And the Army was extremely gracious to us. We worked very, very well with them, especially the Special Forces guys. But some of these guys had never landed on ships before. So I actually went in with the Army helicopter pilots.
Right.
There was a first lieutenant and a bunch of warrant officers. And I flew, left seat in an OH-58 and did carrier landings with them because they were getting ready to leave and to land
Okay.
on a boat.
Well, that's a big difference, because the boat's going up
to
and
go
down.
home.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I got a little bit of time in an OH-58, and again, they were the guys that I flew with were just fantastic.
Yeah.
They could fly that thing
They're tiny.
like nobody's business. Yeah.
They're a tiny aircraft. As a trooper, the only thing I'd ever been on really was a Black Hawk or a 47.
Yeah.
And when I went to aerial observer school, I remember walking up to that thing, and it's like a mosquito compared to,
Oh, yeah, right.
and I'm like, wow. And then the running landing thing was like, why are we doing this? But yeah, it was interesting.
But though, with the OH-58s, and the Hueys were kind of the same. They were old and they were a little bit small,
Yeah.
but they were very responsive.
Oh, yeah.
So they were a lot of fun to fly, because when you put the stick in a position and you wanted the helicopter to do something, it did it. There was nothing that dampened it out, no computer controls or anything like that. It was a lot of fun.
Guy that taught me how to hover down at Fort Sill, there was a pile of automobile tires.
Yeah.
And he taught me to pick the tire up with the skid, take it over, and drop the tire off. And
That's good.
That's how he taught. Old Vietnam vet. He was my IP, yeah.
Those guys could fly those things. They were just, they were good.
Pretty amazing. So, all right, flash forward. You come out of the service. What are you thinking about that day you're getting out? You're signing out as an officer, and you're relinquishing your command and everything else, and you got a wife and children by that time. Well, we knew you had the wife, but children by the time you're getting out. So what's going through your mind? I mean, you know, when you're getting out.
So after my 4 years at Camp Lejeune, I did about 2.5, 3 years running the Navy Marine Corps Survival School up in Brunswick, Maine.
All right.
And we were getting out from there. I had 3 kids at the time, and you know, I was getting ready to go back to heavy deployments, and thought, you know, I need to be a father and a husband more than a Marine pilot at this time. So it's a little bit scary because, you know, all I ever really knew was the military.
Right.
And you know, how are those skills going to help me in some sort of career as a civilian in the private sector? So I got out, moved back to Ohio, worked for a short time with my father on a couple of different things, and ended up getting into manufacturing right after that. The company I worked for was headquartered out in Solon, and the head of human resources was a retired Army colonel who had graduated from Miami University.
Oh, okay.
And the company was very, very big on hiring military, hiring veterans. So I was hired directly into supervision, and I think they were concerned that I would be a little too hardcore for the department I was in. But you know, there's good people everywhere. Right. You know, I was very, very impressed with the caliber of people that I was working with coming out of the military. And of course, as we talked about, the leadership things and the supervisory skills that you learn are second to none, and those absolutely applied, you know, directly to what I was doing.
As a leader, you know, with the military experience, and you come out and dealing with civilians, do you notice there's, is it easier, do you think it's easier with the leadership capability that you got from the military, or do you think it's more difficult?
I think it's a little more difficult. You know, in the military, when somebody, you know, ranks underneath you, they have to do what you say.
Responsive.
They have to obey the order. Now, you can be the hardcore military guy that says, this is what we're going to do, and everybody shut up and do it. And I was never really like that. I always thought it was, you know, explain the why behind things. And I think by the fact that I did that in the Marine Corps, that it was a whole lot easier to use those leadership skills in the private sector. And to just, you know, treat people like people. Right. You know, here's what I want to do. Do you think it's a good idea? Let's talk about it. At the end of the day, it's my decision to make, but I'm going to get your input, and we're going to agree to the best thing. And, you know, I'll even give you a little leniency and say, you know, if you want to try it your way, fine. If it doesn't work, then we'll switch. If not, you know, as long as it's not catastrophic, we'll give it a whirl.
So you mentioned you were in SEER school up in New Brunswick?
At Brunswick, Maine.
Brunswick, Maine. Right. Tell me a little bit about that. That sounds pretty interesting.
All right, so SEER is an acronym. It's S-E-R-E, Survive, Evade, Resist, Escape. And all of the services have a SEER school. The Army has one in Fort Bragg. The Air Force has one in Spokane, Washington. And basically what it is, it's a school that teaches aircraft special forces on what they need to do if they ever get shot down, if they ever get caught behind enemy lines. And we taught, obviously, survival techniques, you know, what to eat, what not to eat, how to recognize things. We taught some shelter building. We taught water purification. We taught how to do some plant recognition type things. And then all of the students got captured. And then we ran them through as realistic as we could make it, a 24-hour.
So you were actually an instructor up there.
Prisoner of war scenario. Yeah, exactly. I was. There was about 60 Navy Marine Corps instructors, and I was a department head. So in essence, they all worked for me, but I also worked with the school and with the camp. So we once they were captured, we ran them through again a realistic 24-hour prisoner of war scenario. And before that, we had taught them techniques on how to resist interrogation. We taught them on how to evade answering questions, and then we actually did kind of a little mini escape scenario, again, as realistic as you could make it. But inevitably, and a lot of what we taught was based on what folks who had been captured in Vietnam had experienced.
Now, you said you also met Michael Durant, or were at a briefing of his.
Correct.
And he was the pilot that was captured in Mogadishu.
Yep.
What was the experience that you took from him back to that SEER school?
It's interesting because at SEER school, one of the guys on staff had been a prisoner in Hanoi for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, he had experienced things firsthand.
5 years is a long time.
That we were just teaching and we
Right.
were talking about. So obviously we had a duty expert that was there with us. In that prisoner of war scenario, which was kind of the worst of all worlds, there were certain things that you should do and certain things that you shouldn't do. Meeting Michael Durant was interesting because when he was captured, one of the things he did very, very well was he built a rapport with his captors.
Mm-hmm.
And in a standard prisoner of war scenario, it's not necessarily encouraged, but in that scenario, they started to see him as a human being as opposed to just an enemy combatant.
Right.
And in establishing the relationships that he established, that was part of the reason that he was kept alive and that he made it back. And of course, his story, listening to him talk,
Right.
Everybody's on the edge of their seats.
Could it be the difference there is there was just one, as opposed to in Hanoi there was groups? I mean, there was
Very, very possible. A lot of what we taught was, and without getting into too much detail, in a standard prisoner of war scenario, the captors, whether it be the Germans or the
Right.
Japanese or the Vietnamese, you're an enemy combatant, and the Geneva Conventions apply.
right.
When you're captured by terrorists or
Nothing applies.
Nothing applies.
Right.
And if you can build that rapport and again keep yourself from getting killed without giving up information, that was the whole goal of the course. And it was a good course.
That's interesting.
It was not enjoyable for any of the students. But the common theme was, I hope I never have to use this training,
Right.
but this is the best school
Well, I
I've
think
ever
it's a
been in.
wake-up call, though. I mean, it's the realism being slapped in your face here that this could happen to you.
Yep.
And you're flying, again, you go back to that, well, it's a peacetime mission. Well, maybe for the pilot, but if he's flying over Mogadishu
Yep.
or if he's flying over Bosnia and there's a war going on the ground down there, you could be a combat victim very quickly. So, so let's flash forward. Your great sense of duty, Marine Corps, and now you're a public servant, elected a couple years ago as county commissioner. What brings your sense of duty back to, your country and to your community to serve like that?
That's a great question. We're in a period of time where veterans and folks who are active duty in the military are, have the respect of Washington, have the respect of the general populace, probably as much as any time in our history.
Correct.
I mean, it's just it's a good time to be a veteran. It's a good time to be in active duty. And when you break that down, why are veterans admired? Why are they given the respect? You look at them because of their sacrifice and because of their commitment, because of their call to duty and all the different things that we associate
Right.
with the military. And I agree 100% of that. But all of those things apply to, not only myself as an elected official serving the residents of Medina County, but also people who are, just living in their neighborhoods or going to school or going to work on a daily basis. Each of us can probably come up with, somebody where if we had sacrificed our time or our money or given a little bit of effort, we would have made a difference.
Right.
And I think if folks see people in the military today as they make a difference, and again, I agree 100%, but we can do that on a daily basis. You finish shoveling, I go over to my mother-in-law's house the other day to shovel her driveway. The guy across the street with this monster snowblower comes out and, does in 10 minutes what it would have taken me an hour to do,
right.
and God bless them for doing it. But that sort of, sacrifice, that sort of duty is, I think, what I try to take from the military and apply it to county commissioner or whatever.
I heard you speak once, and you said about the sense of duty that each and every, basically citizen in the United States can have or has. And it's funny because it seems as we see more and more people sometimes wanting to, what can they take or what can they get from, government or from other people. And there's still a lot of people out there that are doing and doing and doing, and somehow we don't seem to get that word. I mean, there's a lot of people that help their communities, that help their neighbors, and I think we both try to raise our children that, it's not all about me, it's about what can you do for other people. And the military does do that for you. Especially when you're deployed to some of these other countries. I mean, you realize the United States is the best place in the world to live.
You know, one of the things I've said to people, we don't know what poverty is like.
No,
I mean, I'm sure
no
there's some
idea.
areas in some of the inner cities that are impoverished, but when you see, you know, the folks that we used to see in Mogadishu were living in these little stick
Right.
huts. You know,
16 and 20 of them.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right on the beach, no
Right.
electricity, no clean water. You know, I think sharks and camels
Right.
literally were the only things that they had to eat on a regular basis. And you know, when you look at the opportunities and the things that we have in our country, you don't have a lot of patience for folks who complain, and
Right.
I'm one who will complain as well. So
Yeah,
it's,
well, we all have our complaints, but I always ask people, what have you did for someone else lately? I mean, you know, really, that's, you know, because I try to get up every day and, you know, and go, what can I do to help people?
Yeah.
You know, whether it's at my job, whether it's picking up the neighbor's newspaper, whatever it is. So I'm glad you carry that back from the service, and I think a lot of us service members do too.
yeah.
So.
And I think, you know, you mentioned, you know, kind of givers and takers, and I still work in manufacturing, and you see it with people you work with. There are some who are just there to get everything they possibly can.
Right.
And just give the effort that's needed, whereas there's others that, you know, show ownership and show pride and sacrifice and realize that they need to give
It's a lifestyle, not
more
a job.
more than they take.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Interesting. So, real quick before we close, any last comments that you got about your military service, your service to country, your service to the community?
You know what? I think I was in the Marine Corps for about 9.5 years. And obviously wouldn't trade it for anything. You know, after I got out, I even sort of regretted getting out because I missed it and I enjoyed it. And I always say, you know, not everybody is good for the military, but the military is good for everybody. And if you're out there right now, you've got a son or daughter, you know, you're just out of high school or you're in your 20s, and you're looking for, you know, what do I do, and you're not quite sure. The military has so many opportunities. The military has such a leadership training program. You know, I went to my, 10-year, 15-year high school reunion, and there's folks who've never left Ohio, and I've been to, Italy and Israel and Africa and all these other different places that if I had to join the military, I never would have had a chance to see.
It's an education.
Plus that, and then plus all of the training and the things that you learn through the formal schools, through the informal schools. You know, the friends you make. You know, we could probably talk off camera about some of the friends and some of the crazy stuff some of those guys did.
There isn't much that surprises you after a certain amount of time in the service.
Right.
I know your daughter just enlisted in the Air Force.
Absolutely.
I want to congratulate you on being an Air Force father now.
That's right.
And one last question I ask everybody: if you had to do it over again, would you do it any different?
I wouldn't do a whole lot different. I would probably apply myself even more. There were opportunities I had where it just didn't fit in at the time, and I just said no to. And
But you'd still be a Marine today.
I would definitely still be a Marine, that's for sure.
All right, Adam, I want to thank you for coming.
Thanks a lot.
This closes this segment of Salute to Service. See you next month. Thank you.
I wanted to start a business that I was passionate about, something I absolutely enjoyed and believed in.
My name's Steve Allen, run RadCab in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Starting a business can be incredibly confusing.
SCORE really helped me steer the course. From business plan software to insurance. If you get a solid foundation laid, everything else falls in place. It really feels amazing to create jobs here in my city. I could not imagine doing anything else.
Get your free business mentor at score.org.